It's Tuesday, 1 November in the year of our Lord 2022. We're going to start off today in the great state of Arizona, the railhead of the MAGA movement, and Congressman Andy Biggs from Arizona 5. Congressman Biggs, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. I know we got a lot to go through, but I want to ask you first, give us a sense of where Arizona is right now, sir. We see that a lot of polls are coming out. There's a poll this morning from Phillips Academy, has Kari Lake up 11 points. Blake Masters literally tied with Mark Kelly. That's even before the Libertarian threw in the towel last night and endorsed Blake Masters. What's your sense of your race, the rest of the House races, and where we stand in the Senate and the statewide races in your best judgment?
Well, I think in the House races, Arizona will be at least 6-3 and has an actually a decent shot to go 7-2. So that would be taking CD4, which is the Stanton seat right now. It would be taking up north in Arizona, that's currently held by O'Halloran, and then the seat being vacated by Ann Kirkpatrick, who's retiring. So we'll go from being 4-5, 4 Republicans, 5 Ds, to being at least 6-3, plus possibly 7-2. I do think Blake's going to win. I think that the Libertarian dropped out. He was polling about 5 or 6. I think that he's going to shift about 2 or 3 over to Blake. I think that the other 2 or 3 probably won't even vote. And Kari Lake's going to have long tails. Steve, you know that. She is doing great, and the separation between her and the Democrat is increasing daily. And I think that that bodes well for everything all the way down to the Corporation Commission, the school boards, the state legislature, all of these things that are so critical, the water board, all of that. I think long tails coming from Kari Lake at this point.
Let me ask you on the 7-2. What's that? Give us the Andy Biggs take on that 7th seat, because that's kind of blockbuster news to go from 4-5, particularly given 2020 to 7-2. That is a massive pickup. What's that? What's the 7th seat that you're calling potentially right now?
It's Congressional District 4. That's got Tempe, West Mesa, Central Mesa. It's currently held by Greg Stanton, who's the former mayor of Phoenix, but he's been in for 4 years. But that race has moved from basically a Democrat lock till today. It is now a toss-up race. And Kelly Cooper is the Republican, and he's working hard, working very, very hard, as hard as anybody in the country that I've seen this year. And with the right break, the coattails of Kari Lake and even Blake moving in now, I would say it's an even shot that Kelly can win that.
You do know when this happens, that sends a shockwave through the Democratic Party. Look, we have a unique opportunity nationwide to shatter the Democratic Party as a national political institution, force them really into the coast and to the university towns throughout the nation. But if Arizona, if that came true, given what happened on the election night in 2020, that would be nothing short of massively historic. You agree, Congressman Biggs?
100%. It was. I was not even expecting that. If you had asked me 6 months ago, or even 30 days ago, I believed that there was a chance, an outside chance. But now I say it's even. Look, Steve, I would tell you that I think the Democrat Party is almost gone the way of the dodo already. It's been such a realignment since the Trump MAGA movement, as you know, and so now the party of the elite coastal folks is the Democrats, and the only places in the middle are going to be the big cities. Everywhere else, including the suburbs, are going to break ultimately to Republicanism, and that's because people want to be free. They want to be independent. They want to be. They don't want the crazy wokeness in their kids. They want them taught well, not indoctrinated. They understand the crime. They see the gas prices. They see the inflation. They see the border wide open. They see us weak on an international stage. All the things that people don't really pay attention to are now slapping them in the face because it is so real. All these things are palpable and a part of their lives now. And while many people haven't focused on this yet, as everybody starts making the connection, I think it'll impact the Democrat Party in a way that's seismic.
See, people misread. We were deeply involved in the Youngkin situation in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm from Virginia. It was, although people know Youngkin's not my cup of tea, but it was a combination of the populist nationalist MAGA movement with the parental rights, what I call the suburban moms and dads, many of whom, if you mention Donald Trump's name, they spit right on the floor. That combination is 2/3 of the American people, 70% of the American people. And you have a lot of moderates, a lot of even Democrats, a lot of independents, and the parental rights are just, and also the injections are sitting there going, I call it the 3 I's, Cortez and I, inflation, immigration, and injection. They don't want to talk about it. They're afraid of being, bothered at work. But man, that is right below the surface. That is boiling. That's why we're in play in Connecticut 2, Connecticut 5, Rhode Island 2. I mean, New England. Right now, Congressman, we could flip the entire house just with the pickups in New York State. I mean, people are like, they're freaking, the Democrats are freaking out because they've overplayed their hand so well. And I think they're going to go I think they're going to be like the Whigs before the Civil War. It's just a party that existed, was very powerful, and then went away. And remember, the Democratic Party has been around essentially since, close to the founding of the country when parties first came up. But I want to go to this thing of accountability, because you and I have hung out a lot. You're a very tough hombre. We always look to you for prosecutorial opinions and investigations and things like that. The Atlantic had this article by an economist that said, hey, maybe upon further review, we should just have an amnesty on everything related to COVID-19, the lockdowns, the mask mandates, all of it. Congressman Biggs, do you have any thoughts about that? Because I know the investigation is going to be a very big part of the coming new Congress.
Yeah, Steve. First of all, we have to investigate Fauci, Birx, China relationship. The fact that we're still funding, according to some reports, gain of function elsewhere, and actually in the United States at one university. We've got to get to that. But this amnesty business is basically the left saying, hey, no harm, no foul. But there was a massive amount of harm. And I was just jotting it down while I was waiting, Steve, to come on with you. And I want you to think about that. They changed the voting rights over this. They changed our civil liberties. They shut down small business in favor of big business. They shut down churches and synagogues in favor of strip clubs and liquor stores. They told us that kids, they say, well, we didn't know much about it. Yeah, we did. We knew a lot about it. We knew that the elderly were especially vulnerable, and that's who you should protect. But instead, Cuomo in New York actually put them in more harm's way. We let these people die. People die all over the country, alone, afraid, and in despair. What are they talking about? We told kids, you can't come to school, even though we knew kids had almost no impact whatsoever from the COVID. And what do we have now? Mental illness going through kids like crazy. We've lost 2 or 3 years at least of education, and we've damaged that young generation. Look, we said, look, we're going to allow rioting and BLM and Antifa to come out and rattle our chains and scare the crap out of people and burn down buildings. But if you went to a Trump rally, you were going to be ostracized. We saw the hypocrisy of you and me being locked down, but Newsom sitting in the French laundromat, whatever that was, French laundry restaurant, and then people going on vacations, all these elected officials from the left. And we went to proxy voting. We fined members of Congress if they took off a mask on the floor, even though nobody else was on the floor. We changed the fundamentals of this country. And I don't know how soon we're going to get back our civil rights. I don't know how soon we're going to get back to this science-based knowledge that we used to have we just caved in on everything. And for them to say, oh yeah, well let's let Fauci go. He didn't do anything wrong. Let's let Birx go. They didn't do anything wrong. Let's let the people go who abused us and basically have inflicted a generation at least of harm on this country. Let's go ahead and let them go with their riches, and let's not worry about it. I find that absolutely sick and offensive.
Of course, it was the Atlantic Magazine, which is the intelligentsia of the left's. It's the conventional wisdom from the intelligentsia of the left.
Right.
How would you go? We got a couple of minutes. How would you actually go about this in Congress? We're going to have a new Congress, and on the 14th, Judiciary and Oversight are going to have a joint press conference to lay out a framework, I think, going forward about Hunter Biden. Right, not what they've done to date, but it's really what's going forward on Hunter Biden. This is Jordan and Congressman Comer. How would you, and given the scale of what we just talked about, and clearly the Atlantic's trying to run a trial balloon, right, among even the Republican elites to say, hey, let's back off of this thing, right? Let's not get nasty. How would you? What's the framework that Andy Biggs would look at of how we proceed forward?
Well, the first thing you do is you identify the personnel that drove us off the cliff, and that would be Fauci and Birx right there. That'd be important to get to them. The CDC with their myriad up and down contradictory statements, and then what you do is you take the evidence that we have. I mean, I got thrown off TV.
So my point is, you would start with the administrative state aspect of the federal government. Absolutely. You would start there with the administrative state, the institutional, and then the people driving the institutions. And you do not a political witch hunt, but literally just let's get down and find out. Let's go, but like they did the Pearl Harbor Commission and other things. Let's get down to the bottom of this and find out exactly what went on.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. So we want communications. We want to know what their objectives were, why there were so many mixed signals coming from somebody like a Dr. Fauci over masks. That's where you have to go and find out why were you not listening to studies with regard to elderly? Why were you attacking the elderly in the way you did? And why did you go to the kids when there was already active studies indicating little impact to and from and transmission from children? Why did you do these things? We have to get to the bottom of that. Not in a witch hunt fashion, because it won't be a witch hunt. This is going to be a much more reasoned and rational approach than what we saw from the crazy colleagues that we have, like in Maryland, Raskin, or the J6 committee, where they have something in mind already. I think what we have to do is say, tell us about what's gain of function. Why were we funding it? Why has that always been off limits? And why did you do it anyway? And I think that it will be incredibly revealing to the public. It's kind of going to be kind of like a church commission, or as you say, the World War II commission as well, where you look at back and you say, let's do an after action investigation, find out why, what, and then how do we never repeat?
And it makes by the way, it's educational, it's for the future, but it also holds the institutions. And by the way, you make changes on what you have to change, but it also holds institutions accountable, and it holds the people accountable if there are individuals that come out in that, and you got to do it. It's got to be a commission with the ranking. The committee's got to have a ranking member. It has to have minority counsel. Have to do the whole thing, right? Absolutely. So people can cross-examine witnesses, all that. You can't. Well, American people can't feel this is political.
Yeah, and Steve, your witnesses would have an opportunity for counsel as well, and you do it openly and transparently. None of this behind closed door business where you hide this from the public. No, let's have it so the world can see. America's stronger for that when we do that. We're less strong when we hide stuff, but we're much stronger when we open it up.
Congressman Biggs, how do people follow you on social media? How do they find out more about you, your office, and your campaign?
Yeah, BiggsForCongress.com, at Rep. Andy Biggs, and at Rep. Andy Biggs AZ. And so those are the ways you find me. We'll get to the bottom of this, Steve, for sure. For sure.
Oh no, we're gonna spend a ton of time on this. Congressman Biggs, great opening on this. We're gonna spend many days, weeks, and months ahead on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care, man.
In fact, we've reached out. Mike Davis is going to join us here in a second, but I want to stay in Arizona just for a minute because another big story. John Yep from John. Walk through, because I want you to tell the name of your organization. And the Bishop of Arizona has now, I think, said you don't have the rights to that name. You got to give it back. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the fact that your group that's trying to get people to vote that are Catholic, had a conference at which Mike Flynn and Steve Bannon, who are both Catholics, spoke at. So, John, tell me what the bishop in Arizona is trying to do with your group.
Steve, thanks for having us on. We are Catholics for Catholics. We began here in Arizona, and it wasn't just one bishop. It was the Arizona Catholic Bishops Conference, right, who issued a statement basically saying that we and other groups don't have the right to use the word Catholic, which is ironically funny, the timing of it, 1 week before the elections. And yet there's groups that have been walking around doing their own thing that have been like Catholics for Choice, and they've never been challenged ever before. So, and I thought that one of the things about their essay, what they wrote, is that they said, we have a long tradition in the Catholic Church of having our faith influence our political views. And when you switch it, implying us, we switched it, we're outside church teaching. Which it's Steve, they're quoting canon law 216, and we're going to fight it. We have the legal backing of our canon lawyer to know we have the right to use that name. But if you want to quote canon law, back at them. Canon law 915 specifically states any politician who manifestly is in grave sin should be barred from Holy Communion. That's Joe Biden himself, the president.
Look. Here's the thing. They did. Yep. And this was perfect. Catholics for Catholics. You're trying to. The point you're making is that the Democratic ticket here, and I come from a family of Democrats, right? Years ago, decades ago, the ticket out here in Arizona that is pro-abortion, pro the radical gender ideology, anything you pick that's just so radical. The Democratic ticket is basically made up of quote unquote Catholics. Your point is, hey, we'd like to have some real Catholics out there, and we want to have a group that exposes people that the people out here on the left have been using the Catholic name forever with all these groups, but the Catholic bishops just decide upon further review, because your group is actually getting traction and starting to get people to wake up to the fact that exactly what we're talking about is Catholics in the public square. All of a sudden, they want to take your name away. Is that essentially the case they're making?
That's it. It makes no sense. We wouldn't be doing this. We're just normal dads who are putting our other work aside to get to say this because no one else is saying it. They've been silent on this. And they can say, well, we shouldn't get political. Yet this is the same Arizona Catholic Bishops Conference that came out and officially endorsed 2 propositions which go against conservative values. Now, we can debate about whether that's right or wrong, but the fact is they came out in a political move. So to come out and say that, it's a non sequitur, Steve. And we're doing this because we love our faith.
But talk about the 2 propositions. Well, let's see what they are in their actions. What 2 propositions do the Catholic bishops support?
308 and 209. Now I'm more versed on 308, which basically is essentially that we're going to, if it's approved, we would have to provide, funds for people who are not citizens of this country, and we would pay for their in-state tuition to the universities. Now, all that's going to do, obviously, is foster illegal immigration. Now, they've come out, in favor of that. We should accept that. We should pay for all their thing. But, this is the same group that basically they're one of their organizations, Catholic Charities, gets a check from the government for every head that comes in from a legal immigrant. So, of course, it's in their vested political interest to be in favor of this open borders. But they're not the one who has kids who try to go trick-or-treating and have to worry about their kids getting fentanyl in the candy next door. They don't have to worry about that. We do.
Before we let you go, because the group is pretty impressive, I know you're rolling out nationwide. Catholics for Catholics, what is the raison d'etre? What is the thesis of why you even had to have this new group come up and why it started in Arizona?
It's a battle of ideas right now. What is a Woman was a terrific documentary that Matt Walsh did. We're fighting over the word Catholic. We are going to reclaim the word Catholic specifically as it applies to the public square. And we have to be courageous and go at it. it's time to have a discussion. When you have 5 of the most important races in Arizona, from governor, secretary of state, and 2 key congressional races, all have Democrats who say they're Catholic, but they're not. They go against core issues. It's time to bring it up and realize that the likes of Mark Fincham, who's not a baptized Catholic, he's more Catholic than them. And so our vote, which determines elections, we need to motivate those people to realize that. So this is not just an ancillary issue.
Katie Hobbs is just not a Catholic. Katie Hobbs, I think, was Catholic educated all the way through grammar school. I think even through high school. Katie Hobbs was not just raised a Catholic and baptized a Catholic in the church. She's educated in Catholic schools and is very proud of that, right? And I would respectfully submit that a lot of her policies are not exactly what you think is standard Catholic teaching. Correct?
No.
First off, every pay campaign stop went on in the morning show. Every campaign stop she makes, which is not a lot, everyone's at a Planned Parenthood, and there's not a more radical Planned Parenthood in the country than Arizona. It's the most radical of all the Planned Parenthoods. So how does that work? Yep. How does that work?
It doesn't work. That's the problem. It's like they're not even American. How can you favor killing babies after they're outside the mother's womb? What is that, right? So we're just a group that's basically going to say the emperor has no clothes on anymore. We're going to call it what it is. And we're doing it most importantly because we love our faith and we love our country.
John, yep, you went and you hit the tripwire of the Catholic Bishops of Arizona. How do people find out more about you? How do they follow you on social media and how they get to Catholics for Catholics? I do believe that this will be a national organization pretty quickly, sir.
We are so grateful that you showed up. You made the night. When no one knew that you were coming, but when I got to say from stage that Steve Bannon was in the room, the applause was thunderous. So let everyone know that. Catholics, we support Steve Bannon. But C4C.com. C, letter C, FORC.com.
John, yep, thank you very much. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you for coming. Thanks for fighting.
Yep.
I want to go now to Mike Davis, the great Mike Davis. Mike, you heard Andy Biggs there. Before I want to get about your essentially crusade to take on big tech, and there's a lot of things happening. This DHS report, all of it. But I want to ask you about what Andy Biggs said about the Atlantic piece, where the Atlantic is saying, "Hey, a lot of stuff happened, but maybe we should just all have amnesty and a big group hug." You worked for Grassley for a long time. Do you see that happening? Do you see everybody saying, "Yeah, you're right. We'll just forget 2020 and 2021 and let's just move on"?
Heck no, not at all. Not a chance. You're going to see when Republicans take back the Senate, you're going to see Senator Rand Paul doing aggressive oversight over this. He's going to look at COVID's birth, how Tony Fauci funded COVID's birth in the Wuhan lab. He lied about it. He covered it up. It caused there are catastrophic consequences around the world. It caused trillions of dollars in damage. It killed millions of people. It destroyed our lives. I mean, there has to be a consequence to this. And we saw how the Democrats took advantage of COVID for power. They unnecessarily closed down schools, these unnecessary science-free COVID measures that they took to allegedly protect us from COVID. They should have known early on that these measures were unnecessary and the cure was so much worse than the disease. So we have to get to the bottom of this. They can't just destroy 2.5 years of our lives and have no consequences.
We're going to talk in a second about the big tech aspect in DHS, but when you look at this concept of the administrative state, isn't one way to go about this is to look at the administrative state part of it, to look at the bureaucracy, to look at the special agencies, to see the responsibilities, and really make it as educational for the American people as possible. It's obviously a serious investigation. Individuals who made those decisions will obviously be front and center. But this is even bigger than individual choice. This is about the institutions themselves and how they've either been corrupted or just turned into kind of incompetent bureaucrats. Do you think that is an angle of attack to go after the administrative state on this part?
Absolutely. We saw that the CDC, Tony Fauci, as the chief medical officer for President Biden, working with the CDC, it was corrupt. They know that these schools and many other institutions around the country, around the world, followed the CDC's guidance. And that CDC guidance was corrupted. We saw the teachers' unions working with the CDC to keep schools closed unnecessarily.
I tell you, we just Mike just froze right there. Let's go ahead and go. We're going to take a short commercial break in a minute, and we're going to come back and we're going to reboot. Let's reboot Mike, and we'll get him back here through the commercial break. We're going to go. We're talking about investigations. Remember, everything is focused. That's why we had Biggs and John Yep in Arizona. John Yep's group, Catholics for Catholics, is a new group that's set up to get Catholics engaged in the political process as an educational opportunity to educate them about Catholic doctrine and what it takes to get involved. Andy Biggs is the congressman out there. Andy Biggs, kind of some blockbuster news. Andy Biggs says we're going to go 7-2 in House seats. That means, I think, 3 pickups. It's 4 and 5. It's 4 and 5 right now. He's predicting a 7-2, including a big victory in Tempe in CD 4. And then Mike Davis, we're talking about the investigations that are going to happen once we take the House. This investigation, very deep investigation to the CDC, FDA, all of it, about the lockdowns, the masks, the vaccines, all of it. Okay, we're going to reboot Mike over the break. We're going to take a short commercial break. Mike Davis will return. Also, we have Darren Beattie. Stay tuned. You're watching The War Room.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. We had technical problem with Mike Davis. Can't get him back up. It keeps freezing. So I want to go to Darren Beattie. Darren, Revolver's been all over this, and I want to get to the Brazil situation in a second. I want to talk about this DHS. This is a blockbuster lawsuit, and what's coming out is even scarier, I think, than people imagined. I want you to walk through the audience of what exactly is going on and they've uncovered, and then going forward, because we've already got the announcement that the first thing they're going to do on the 14th is the shot across the bow. When we come back from the lame duck, Comer in Oversight and Jordan in Judiciary are going to have a joint press conference to talk about the structure of the Hunter Biden investigation going forward. Walk me through this blockbuster at a DHS. You've been warning the country about this ever since Revolver News got up, but quite frankly, I don't think anybody was prepared to see what's been exposed so far just in the early stages of this lawsuit, sir.
So there's a lot to unpack in this important story. There's the broader context, and then there's the specifics of this story. And so I think we'll start with the specifics of the story. Basically, great piece of journalism at The Intercept. They caught the government red-handed, effectively colluding with various big tech organizations to censor and manipulate speech online, in particular at Twitter and other places. There's no other way to put it. They're caught red-handed in emails, and draw attention to just the most explosive revelations. And so one revelation was a text message, I believe, from a Microsoft employee who lamented that the big tech people weren't sufficiently compliant as of that time to government interference, and they needed to become more accustomed to the idea that the government's going to take a more active role in managing quote unquote misinformation and disinformation, which anyone who's been following Revolver knows these are the new censorship predicates du jour. It's not enough just to shut someone up and shut someone down by calling them racist. Now you use a term like disinformation and you attach to it the suggestion that they're a national security threat and therefore it needs to be shut down on a national security basis. There was another official who basically said, look, we need to operate through various cutouts so it's not so transparent that it's actually the government meddling in speech, that it's not a violation of the First Amendment. So they're very aware of the new censorship architecture that goes on, particularly with respect to the internet, is that the government isn't acting directly. They're acting through these intermediaries. And by doing that, they preserve the pretenses that they're upholding the First Amendment when in fact it's anything but the case. There's an architecture set up to provide the false assumption that the government isn't involved. We know they are. And so these leaks, and a lot of it is non-public information, which is what makes this latest piece so explosive, really show that the government is taking active steps. And in fact, another thing that ties into Twitter. So Vijaya God, or whatever her name is, she's out of there, thankfully. She made the decision, she basically made the call to deplatform the sitting president of the United States from his chief vehicle for communication, which was Twitter. She made that call. She's fired now. She was on the board of one of these organizations housed in the DHS that would have taken a more proactive role. And again, managing narratives and quote unquote censoring what they consider disinformation. We know from other documents coming out, what is it that they actually consider disinformation? Revolver's reported on this. This is from other leaks and other things that come out. There are three things that they were especially interested in shutting down conversation about. Number one, and you won't be surprised, anything involving election integrity. Anything involving the election, they want total control over information flow up to the government level. This is not just the Biden administration. A lot of this was happening under Trump, which is remarkable. And I'd like to explore the significance of that in a bit. So number one, no talk about the election, nothing that deviates from the official narrative. There's been no meddling in the election. Of course, the beauty part about this is that this very act of collusion is itself meddling in elections by prohibiting discussion of it. So that's one, no meddling in elections. Number two, of course, can't talk about January 6th. And that's, of course, related to that. No meddling elections, can't talk about January 6th. Number three, again, it's not going to shock people. You better shut up when it comes to COVID. You better shut up and do what Pfizer tells you to do and say what Pfizer tells you to say. They're absolutely dedicated to managing information flows about COVID. In fact, a DHS report that came out earlier suggested that a huge elevated terror threat was based on misinformation circulating around COVID. So if you're skeptical about the vaccine, if you're skeptical about the lockdown, any other aspect of COVID, you're a domestic terrorist from the standpoint of the DHS and Biden regime. And there's an official collusion organization, basically a cabal. What else can you say? Between sort of civil society, NGO cutouts, big tech, and a censorship extension arm within the DHS. So basically, this shows that disinformation governance board, that was just the tip of the iceberg.
But hang on. I just want to give me a minute and put it in perspective. This is more Kafkaesque. This is actually 10 times worse than I think people even imagine, given the great reporting that Naomi Wolf had, that Darren Beattie and Revolver had. I mean, now it's actually out, and now it's actually there and for all to see. This is your worst nightmare. Your worst nightmare is a reality.
Absolutely. I mean, the structure of it was clear based on previous documents, based on our reporting. But what's useful about this recent major report from The Intercept is that it includes non-public information, leaked documents, and text messages that actually show specifically how the sausage is made and the specific actors. And it's amazing. It's not just people from the tech firms colluding with people in the DHS. There are people present in many of these meetings from JP Morgan. Now that's bizarre in its own right. Why are JP Morgan representatives taking an increasingly active role in these censorship conversations? Could it have anything to do with the recent, actually not so recent, unfortunately, but the accelerating trend of debanking as yet another tool that the regime uses to destroy anyone who dares question it? So basically, all the important institutions, from the healthcare institutions, big pharma, the big banks like JP Morgan, and big tech, they're sitting at the table. They're sitting at the round table with the Biden regime Ministry of Truth propaganda arm housed within the DHS. And as we've been saying for a long time at Revolver, the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is the tip of the spear when it comes to the reorienting of the national security state as a weapon against the American people. And this is a prime example of just precisely how that functions and how that operates.
How do you give me a couple of minutes on how do you get your arms around it, but the Truth and Reconciliation Committee that we have to have. Starting, the 14th, you've got Judiciary and Oversight, which is very unique. Joint press conference talking about a construct going forward on Hunter Biden. And let's be blunt. That's a shot across the bow to say, hey, an impeachment's coming, right? Because this is going to be the second article of impeachment. It'll be 6 months, 9 months, 8 months after a thorough investigation, and not political, but really on facts. How do you do the same thing here? Tell me the Darren Beattie structure of how you go about sorting this out.
Well, first of all, we need full transparency. We need to see all these documents. We need to see a very, very aggressive move in order to unearth all communication that exhibits this collusive behavior between the government and between big tech. Because in a way, it's like they screwed up here. They had a good thing going when they were just playing footsie. Big tech, they could have done it the way that they did it for a long time, which is that it's not the government doing active direction, but big tech knows what the government wants. And there's a revolving door between, say, the State Department and the trust and safety people at the various tech companies. With this disinformation governance board and with the more aggressive posture toward censorship and narrative control through the government itself, through DHS, they're opening themselves up to a whole host of things, including First Amendment violations. So I think the first thing is we've only seen a very small fraction of exactly what the extent is of this collusion. I hope that now that Elon has Twitter, he's going to release a lot of the documents that demonstrate what that collusion is. I think we need to use the power of Congress to the extent possible to subpoena records that would give us a full account of the government pressuring big tech to censor in specific issues. And then we need to drill down to specific people, because a reckoning is only as powerful as it is specific. And we need some scalps here. I think we need
scalps, and we're going to get scalps.
Ray, we need senior officials at the DHS going all the way back under Trump. And this is a point I wanted to come back to. A lot of this was happening under Trump. So imagine the lesson that we need to take home from this is that we had Trump in the White House. And while Trump was in the White House, you had Stephen D'Antuono and Christopher Wray plotting the fake Michigan kidnapping thing. That was under Trump. And then you had the DHS, which was plotting to censor anyone who would dare question the result of the forthcoming election. So you had all of this stuff going on across the bureaucracies while Trump was president. Can you only imagine how bad it is now under Biden? We just get a little taste.
But you know what? Hey, listen, this is one of the things we fought when I was in the White House, to get him to sit there and get the information. His chief of staff, the people around him. Come on, this stuff is not that hard to. If you drill down on this, it will hold judgment on this. But you gotta, we can't accept this, and we certainly can't accept it going forward. It's not acceptable. I keep saying the appropriations process is the anvil, the investigations are the hammer. Yep. Should we use when they say, we can say pretty please turn it over. Should DHS's budget be completely zeroed, no appropriations, until they turn over a massive, basically data room, laundry list of stuff to the appropriate committees, Darren Beattie?
I mean, in my view, absolutely. In my view, every piece of leverage that could plausibly be marshaled to begin the difficult but absolutely necessary process of house cleaning and disinfecting needs to be exercised. Leave nothing on the table. Every piece of leverage that we have, we need to use. Now, the question is threatening, total cutoff of funds. Is that realistic? Are people on board? We can only use the amount of leverage that people, and that is to say our elected officials, are willing to go out on a limb for. But from my perspective, this is a fight worth having. The January 6th fight is absolutely a fight worth having. We need to go after Merrick Garland. Needs to be one of these scalps. He needs to be impeached. He needs to go. He needs to learn his lesson from his decades of criminal activity and malfeasance. But he's not the only one. DHS needs to learn, the whole national security state, because here's what happened.
Yeah.
The DHS was created under Bush as basically a bureaucracy to prosecute the war on terror. That grift, that scam is done. And so they're reimagining the DHS for a new war on terror, and that's to terrorize American citizens who dare question these criminal scumbags who run the regime.
Yeah. Yeah. First off, the size of it's 275,000 people. It ought to be cut down to 100,000. Just take out.
The DHS, everyone knows this. I don't want to offend anyone. Everyone knows this. DHS is very low on the hierarchy within the intel community, is probably one of the lowest IQ national security bureaucracies we have, if not the lowest.
Oh, big time.
So,
it's the worst.
It's
far. The lowest IQs, no doubt.
Yeah, the lowest.
Wanted to hang over a second. I want to go to Paulo Figueiredo from Brazil, one of the most prominent media personalities down there. A couple hours ago, President Bolsonaro came to the sticks, talked for all of, I think, 2 minutes. People still don't really understand what he said. But my question is this Brazilian spring? Is this the beginning of the Brazilian spring? Because the people are rising up. He did not concede. His spokesman came up right afterwards, his chief communications person, who's kind of, I think, a squish, and said, he's going to start a transition process. But it's still up in the air. I mean, can you actually interpret what happened? And are we seeing in the streets of Brazil the Brazilian spring?
Well, Steve, the country is definitely in a turmoil, and it looks like the beginning of a revolution. But the question is there a leader for the revolution? Because the president just gave a very, very brief, earlier this afternoon, very brief speech. It was only 2 minutes, like you said. He pretty much said that he always followed the Constitution, and he will always follow the Constitution until the end of his term. But he didn't concede. He thanked the votes that he got. He said, there's an expression in Portuguese that you're playing within the four lines. That's a reference to a soccer feud. That means you're playing by the book, by the rules. And he always played by the book, by the rules. And he said he's going to respect Brazilian democracy. He has always been able as someone undemocratic, but he said, unlike his accusers, he always respected the Constitution, and he will keep respecting it. And then he said pretty much that he support the demonstrations if they're peaceful. If they're peaceful, he supports it, it's kind of like similar to what Donald Trump did. He supports peaceful demonstrations. He said that conservatives and the right, and that now Brazil has an actual right. He said that Brazil, the right can't use the same methods as the left. So he said we have to respect the people's property.
That's pretty. I mean, he says I respect the Constitution. We're going to play inside the four lines. We're going to play by the rules. They'll have the rule of law. I respect democracy, and I want things to be peaceful. But he didn't concede, and he didn't say anything about transition. His spokesman came up, and even that's kind of garbled. Are we going to see, Paulo, in your opinion, this military supposed to do an audit? They have a top secret report from the first they have not released. Do you see an audit going on? And in your best guess, where does this go from here?
Well, here's the thing. There's been the military is part of a board that supervise the transparency of the elections. It's an official board, and we have the military as a part of this board, and including the Supreme Electoral Courts and everyone else. They claim they don't have a report because the Supreme Court asked them for a copy of the report, and they gave them 48 hours to deliver the report, the Ministry of Defense, and they said, no, we don't have any reports. We're just following the elections same way as you guys are doing. So there have been rumors of a top secret report, but no one ever saw it. And so far, from what I've been talking to government officials, no one has any actual proof of fraud. The main issue is not if there was an actual fraud in the counting process, because that's only part of it. The election was very unfair since the beginning. Bolsonaro played and ran under different rules from every other candidate, including Lula, but also candidates in other elections. So the main claim here is that this was an unfair election. And I can give you examples. He had way less airtime than he was supposed to have when he went to court to fight it. The court dismissed the case. I'm sure this sounds familiar. Court dismissing cases against a conservative candidate without even looking at it. But in several other instances, a lot of his supporters were arrested. Some businessmen that supported him were arrested. Well, at least had their assets frozen and were subject of search warrants. And I'm sure you're familiarized on how the deep state prosecutes and go after supporters of a conservative president.
Paulo, what is your social media? When all our audience, I already say you do things in Portuguese, but how do people follow you? Because this is only going to get bigger, as this story is only going to get bigger.
It will. I'm on every social media at Rio P, and then my last name, which is on the screen right now. It's Figueiredo. So at Rio P Figueiredo.
Paulo, thank you very much for joining us here. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Let me go back to Darren Beattie before we wrap up tonight. Darren, is this the beginning? You're seeing, Paulo just said you got a revolution that's starting but no leader. Do you see this as the Brazilian Spring story? Give me 30 seconds before we leave for the night.
I certainly hope it is, but as he pointed out, it needs absolutely confident and relentless leadership. And so I think that's what the Brazilian people deserve, and I hope that's what they get, and I hope Bolsonaro is prepared to provide that.
Darren, how do people, on so many topics, you guys are the tip of the spear. Where do they go to get Revolver, and where do they follow you on social?
Revolver.news, and I'm very proud to say that our long-awaited next major piece on January 6th in the pipe bomb is coming out tonight. So check it out. I hope I can come by tomorrow and discuss it. It's been in the works for a long time.
We're booking you right now. We're going to book Darren Beattie. He's going to be back with us tomorrow morning. We'll figure out a time. Amazing. I've been waiting for this one.
See you then.
Richard Bears is going to kick things off with the polling. We're going to see it's breaking hard MAGA. That'll be the headline tomorrow morning. Also, Kerry Lake on Getter. We got Kerry Lake's with Charlie Kirk tonight later. See you tomorrow.